How do you do, neighbor? It's Berean Spirits time once again. The boys have gathered around, and they're ready for you. So join in, make comments, and study with the guys as they try to study as the Bereans did in Acts chapter 17. And now, here's the guys.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Berean Spirits here on the YouTubes and the Facebooks and the internets and all of that good stuff. It's good to be back and to be able to. Okay, stop, Richard. You're making me laugh. It's good to be back for another show, another Bible study where we can talk about the Word of God together. My name is Josh Thornhill. I'm working with the West Side Church in Church of Christ in Wichita, Kansas, down in the southern eastern part of Kansas. And we're still having a lovely fall this winter. Of course, today it is cold. It's like 29 degrees outside, so it's more wintry now. But I know, it's cold. Anyway, with me and below me, not that we're looking down on him, even though we are, Richard Dotson with the Kearney Church of Christ in Kearney, Missouri. Richard, how you doing?
I'm good.
Hey, we're here.
26 here.
26, okay.
Did you guys see the blizzard that was hitting Lake Michigan last night?
No, because I wasn't at Lake Michigan. I'm here in Wichita.
Boy, I tell you, I know, but there are people up there, and I felt sorry for them.
I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah, it looked intense. Very intense.
Okay. And to my side, I don't know, right, I guess. Chris Peltz, the evangelist with the Southside Church of Christ in Springfield, Missouri. Chris, how you doing?
Yeah, man, I'm better than folks in Michigan, apparently. But I know they're ice fishing in Beavertail, Minnesota. Other than that, no, I'm doing good. I'm doing really well.
Good. Very good. Well, I reckon that it's time for us to get ourselves into our study for this morning. I don't have some witty kind of, transition that Chris had. He didn't tell me something that I could use to kind of segue on in there. So we're going to talk about what our brethren should be able to expect from us. We are part of a local congregation. All of us, and hopefully those that are watching are part of local congregations. And the reality is, right now, you've got the NFL playoffs going on. College playoffs are ending very soon.
Without the Chiefs.
Yeah. Exactly. Not that I've watched any of them or will watch any of them, but anyway, one of the things that happens, much like the guy down below me here, they watch games, whether it's on television, whether they go in person, and really all they are is a spectator. They may, contribute somewhat monetarily through their ticket, but really all they're doing is spectating, and yet they have a sense of ownership. Like we won or we lost or we did this horribly and we need to fire this coach or this needs to happen or blah, blah, and everybody is so invested in whatever is going on there. And yet the operations are taking place entirely separate from them. They have no bearing whatsoever on the operations of whatever organization that is. And sadly, there are some people that tend to treat the church that way, that it operates and they're there on Sunday morning as a spectator. And really, that's all their contribution is just being there. But the reality is, there are expectations. There are no spectators in the Lord's kingdom. We are expected to be laboring and working together with the local congregation that we are a part of. I've heard somebody say that it's not a cruise ship where, some people are working, but most of the people on board are, enjoying themselves and being catered to. It's a battleship with all hands on deck, and so there are things that should be expected of us as members of a local congregation, and various things that others should be able to expect from us as we are really locking arms together and working together for the furtherance of the gospel. So,
Can I make
I'll
a
go ahead.
point?
What's that?
Can I make a point on that?
Go right ahead. I was going to throw it over to y'all anyway. So,
Okay, well, a preacher once told me about fellowship, and he explained it this way, and I thought it was really good. Fellowship is like fellows on a ship, and they're working together to get from point A to point B, all yielding to the same authority, which is the captain. And I thought, well, that's a really good explanation of fellowship. Being a joint participant in a goal, in an activity, and yielding to the same authority.
mhm.
I thought it was a pretty good little example.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things too, from Josh's intro, there seems to be something that is almost assumed in one sense, because he stated it, but it is something that is in question by many, and we've dealt with it on the program before, and that is even being a member of a local congregation.
It's true.
And so we've talked about that extensively, I think, in times past, but I think it's worth at least the mention that moving forward, as we look at what brethren, can expect of us, it first and foremost to be a part of the group, right? To be a part of and join to, by which every part does its share, Ephesians 4, verse 16. That local body, and anyone who would deny that need, that pattern, that necessity is in complete disregard for God and Christ's authority and what the scriptures teach concerning the church. We can get into that more if we want, but moving forward, I think from the points that we probably have prepared, it is assume that we understand that you are to be a part of and numbered with a local congregation.
Absolutely. And I would just add to that, we would all agree that the church is part of the eternal purpose of God. We find that in Ephesians chapter 3. But I think we tend to look at that in a universal sense, and that is true. I mean, the universal church is part of the eternal plan of God, but I would suggest that equally as important as the universal body is local churches. That's part of the eternal purpose of God, because you think about the universal church. There is no function of the universal church. It's just the people that are saved that have been gathered into one body in Christ. Now, as far as the work of the church, that's the work that's been given to local congregations, to local groups, to labor and to work within their communities. And so the expectation is that we are a part of the local body, and that we are taking part in the work that is being done there. And so, yeah, I think the expectation is that we are to be part of the local churches. And honestly, I don't see why people wouldn't want to be, other than they don't want to be accountable. But other than that, it's important, and it's part of what God expects of us as His people. All right.
Yep.
So, who wants to start the things that we should be able to expect of our brethren, and they should expect from us? Richard, do you want to
Sure, I can
jump in
start her
there?
off. Well, I mean, first and foremost, you got to go to church.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're going to be part of the work and you never see each other, why be part of the work? I mean, why you need to see each other. You need to get together, and part of the work is done, at the assembly. So you got to go to church, and a lot of times, people do forsake that. And the Hebrew writer makes mention of this, and I'll say it again. Chris said one time he thought I was on this a little too hard, and I said I'll quit getting on it when people, quit forsaking the church or the assembly. But Hebrews 10:24 and 25, we have to consider one another to love and good works. That's part of the work. How do we do that? He goes on to say, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together. So we got to come together. You got to get to church. And, that can be a burden for some. David made reference to how glad he was to go up to the house of the Lord. And I don't know. I guess I've reached that point in my life. I love going to church, and I don't understand this attitude of wanting to forsake it. It's got to be a pretty bad place if you don't want to go there. But from time to time, you do see brethren who decide that they'd rather do something else that particular moment, and I hope they enjoy it. But they're and let me say this, and I've said this before. And we were talking about this right before the show, and it wasn't about this in particular, but there are times when you need your brethren. There are times of adversity when you need a brother. And a lot of times people don't know when that is. I mean, something could be going on in Josh's life right now that I don't know anything about. And that's the way it is at church. Many times you don't know what's going on during the week. They may need to see you. They may need to sing with you. They may need to pray with you. And they may be coming to church not because they necessarily want to, but because they know the Lord commanded it, and they'd rather just go home and crawl under the bed and cry. I mean, they're just whooped. And so they paint a smile on their face and they force themselves into church, and they're expecting to see you. They need to see you. They need you there to build them up. But then all of a sudden you say, I think I'm going to go watch the Chiefs play this morning. I'm going to go tailgate at the Arrowhead, but and skip church. What does that say about your brother? And before you sit there and say, well, we don't know for sure that takes place, let me tell you something. It takes place all the time. All the time. I have preached lessons where I have seen brethren struggle through that lesson. They're back there just wiping tears out of their eyes because of something that's moving them. Something's going on in their life, but nobody else knows. And so this happens quite a bit. People need to see you at church, and it is, you have that duty to your brother to be there ready for him. Even if you never know he's going through it, you need to be there.
Yeah, I was visiting a a gospel meeting one time, and as I was leaving, the guy who was preaching the meeting, he had said that somebody had told him, they're joking, of course, but they said, "All right, well, I'll see you tomorrow night unless I find something better to do," and a joke that tends to be thrown around, but he responded like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 no. Like, don't hold out on us. If you find something better to do, we want to take part in it. Because if there's something better than this, we all should be, taking part in that." And of course, the reality is there is nothing better that you can do. But you brought up Hebrews 10:24 and 25. I think there's some context there that really emphasizes the importance of what he's saying there, because those Christians are being discouraged. They faced persecution. He deals with that in chapter 6 and chapter 10, the kind of persecutions that they've endured already. Either they were currently enduring persecutions or they were about to be enduring persecutions. And they're discouraged to the point that they're about to walk away from their faith. And his point is, first of all, that you need to look at Jesus, because if you truly appreciated who Jesus is, you'd never cast off your faith in him, number one. But number two is you need to lean on your brethren. How do you get through difficult times? Leaning on your brothers and sisters in Christ. That's how. How can the church insulate itself from the persecutions and the difficulties of the culture? By being together. And I would suggest it's not just on the first day of the week, but that is an opportunity that the church has set aside to be able to worship together and to encourage one another, to stir one another up to love and good deeds. And the point is, you need your brethren, and you need to take advantage of the opportunities you have to be able to join with them in worship to God. And so certainly our attendance is something that should be expected of us.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I would also suggest that forsaking the assembly is not the problem. It's a symptom of a deeper problem. Even when you look at, Hebrews chapter 10 is full of so many things that build upon one another. The fact that Jesus has come, he is the sacrifice. And even in verses 19 through 22, working your way up through verse 24 and 25, having your hearts sprinkled, right, and your bodies washed. The idea there, first of all, is getting your heart right, right? And when your heart is right, forsaking the assembly is not a question. Right, it's not a thought. It's just it is something you don't do. It is something that when your heart is in the right place, you're going to meet with the saints when you have the opportunity and fulfill the first day of the week responsibility. I even hate to say it, but at the same time, at the very least, right? And so choosing to do something else, especially on the first day of the week, that's not the problem. That's a symptom of a deeper problem. And it goes to the idea of 1 Timothy 4 and verse 1, where they departed from the faith, where chapter 1, verse 19 of 1 Timothy, they made shipwreck of their faith. And all of these issues, these problems, through Hebrews and these other passages that talk about how people were leaving the faith, they were jumping ship, right? I mean, to use that analogy that you guys used earlier. So we ought to, it ought to be something we can take for granted that you're going to be there on the first day of the week, but unfortunately we can't.
Right.
Well, I'd like to say you can also depress the preacher.
Absolutely.
I had a Bible study once planned with a couple of guys, and I worked all day on that Bible study. I was ready for it. Got to the church building where I was going to meet them. Neither one of them shows up. And I call each one up, and the other one goes, each one said the same. You mean this guy didn't show up? I thought he was coming. I'm like, no, I thought you both were coming. Well, yeah, but I at least thought he was going to be there. You see, each one missed thinking that the other guy could cover the study, and neither one showed up. And it just it really is depressing when you get left. And the thing is, when are we supposed to work on church unity? I mean, unity doesn't just happen. We have to get together to study. We have to listen to lessons. We have to grow together. When are we supposed to do that if we're forsaking the assembly? That doesn't even make sense. I mean, that's something you got. Did Noah take time out building the ark? I got my boys. My boys will handle it. I'm gonna go down to Branson for a while. I mean, no, that didn't happen. He kept building the ark, and we have to keep building our ark, so to speak, and that's not going to happen if we don't show up at work. So there you go.
If you're not showing up for the local church, then you can't rely on them to show up any other time when a need arises, because they haven't proven themselves to be reliable.
In the smallest sense.
Yeah.
If you're not reliable with the smallest of responsibilities, how can we trust you with the bigger ones? And yet there's men, how many men who forsake the assembly get offended when their name's not brought up to be an elder of a church? All of a sudden they're like, oh, how could you guys slight me like this? Well, you're not very responsible. So,
And I think one of the things sometimes people might say is they're strong enough that they don't need to be there every opportunity. First of all, you're lying. I mean, we'll just throw that out there. Yeah, that's not
selfish.
true. It is. It's selfish, and I'm going to come back to that in just a second. You're not that strong. I promise you, you're not that strong. Nobody is, and so you're lying to yourself first and foremost. But you're lying to other people. But then on top of that, back to the selfishness idea, I'm not that strong.
Oh.
And so I need you. If you're really that strong, I need you. Other people need you if you're truly that strong to be an encouragement and an example and uplifting to them. And so that goes back to the encourage or selfishness part. That's really where it boils down to. And at the end of the day, you read through the Psalms, and David had that longing for God, Psalm 42. That, of course, that wasn't a Psalm of David, but as the deer pants for the water, so my soul pants for you or longs for you. David longed for the nearness of God throughout his life. You read through the Psalms, you can see that. You think David would, with that heart for God that he had, that he would say, "Oh, I don't need to go to church today."
Yeah.
I think it comes down. I think it comes down to the chicken and the pig. How they were going to get together for breakfast, and the chicken says, "I'll provide the eggs, you provide the bacon," and the pig
Amen.
says, "Wait a minute, you're making a contribution, and I'm making a commitment."
Sacrifice, yeah.
Commitment, Chris. It was commitment. It was commitment.
Sacrifice.
Commitment.
Anyway. All right.
Well,
so
yeah, real quick on that too. What about the fact, isn't that a command?
What's that?
Oh,
Not
Chris,
forsaking the assembling of
Chris,
yourselves.
that's a gray area.
I mean, God said don't do it, and then you're going to be like, I'm going to do it anyway.
Well, that's the way people interpret it. They take commands as being like, suggestions.
It's the manufacturer's recommendation of how something could be done.
It's a suggestion. It's kind of the way I look at when I buy something and I look at the directions.
Yeah, right.
This is the suggested way to put it together, and I got my own way.
That's right.
That's the way a lot of people view church.
Yeah.
I got my own way of worshiping God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was putting together a workbench the other day, and I had to take it apart like 2 or 3 times, parts that I'd already put together because I didn't put them together the right way, and then it wasn't going to fit together. And I was like, oh, man.
That's frustrating.
Yeah, I was like, come on, man. Like and I was reading the directions too. I just wasn't reading them in the right way.
Now, see, that's what's going to happen on the day of judgment. People are going to sit there and take their work before the Lord, and the Lord's going to look at it and say, well, this isn't what I designed.
That's right.
But they're going to be sitting there saying, no, you didn't design it this way, but I made it better. I don't think
Good luck with that.
Good luck with that. You're right.
All right. So I think we've pretty well hit that one. Another thing that we should be able to expect of one another, and others should be able to expect from us, is being a proper example. We're called upon to imitate the example of Christ. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 5 that we are the light of the world, and we're to shine our lights, and that's the light of Christ, of course. Shine our lights in such a way that others can see our good works and glorify our Father in heaven. And so the way that we act can reflect positively and poorly upon the church. I know of a man, he's since passed away, but he was preaching for a congregation, and he got arrested for sexually abusing children that his wife had been caring for in her daycare. And I saw comments on the news posts on Facebook where people were talking about that he was a member of the Church of Christ and things like that. And what a shame he brought upon the Lord's church, the Lord's people. Utter shame, and people, many people will forever, see that and associate those things together, and that's such a shame. We shouldn't act in a way, and this includes in our day-to-day life, but it also includes our social media interactions. We should act in a way that will glorify God and not bring shame upon the church. And so we should provide a good example, not just to the world, but also to one another. That's an encouragement to one another as well. So, all right, go ahead, fellas.
Yeah, well, even in respect of the assembling together, I remember when my kids were little and we were getting ready to go to assemble on the first day of the week, and we grabbed something to take to someone, and one of my kids said something. I was like, "Well, I mean, why are you taking that? But, I mean, you don't even know that they're going to be there." Yeah, the kids recognized that this was somebody who was so sporadic that they weren't dependable. And, here you are trying to teach your child, responsibility, trying to teach your child the idea of even assembling together. And then you've got others who are, just kind of who are not reliable or who are forsaking the assembly. And then, your kids are left with this contradiction, of what does this actually mean, and how is this, how do you consider them faithful when they're not doing what we're trying to tell our kids they're supposed to do. And so that example extends well beyond the idea of being there for someone who's in need. That example is there for kids because they're in need of seeing the example. And it goes on to other things, obviously, the places we visit, the things we listen to, the shows we watch, the interest that we have and that we talk about regularly. What are they, and what are they demonstrating to those around us as far as our true interests are concerned?
Well, my mom used to tell me all the time I would rather see a sermon than hear one. And let's face it, that's the most powerful lesson you can have is the example. It's easy to tell people how to live, and it's hard to show people how to live. And but that's exactly what Paul said, didn't he, in 1 Corinthians 11:1? Imitate me as I imitated Christ. And think about his example. He called himself the chiefest of sinners, but yet he did such a 180 that caught the attention of everybody. He went from persecuting the church to trying to build the church up. And so his example was tremendous to many, many people. And so, we have to look at that. First of all, draw the encouragement that no matter how bad we've sinned, we can receive forgiveness and we can be of use in the kingdom by just doing that 180 and repenting and serving the Lord. That can be a tremendous influence to those around us. And think about, on your example, think about what people see in you. All right. Do they see you get in your car and go to church? Do your brethren see you go to church regularly? Do they see you there, in season and out of season? That's something that they need to see. Do they see you working hard to doing the work of the church? In other words, if you're not a very good or gifted at praying, do they see you trying to get better? Do they see you trying to do things, in the service of our Lord? Not that you're naturally gifted at it, but you're just trying to get better. And that can be that can be very encouraging. I knew a man one time who, he had some birth defects, and he could not speak clearly. I mean, it was very difficult to understand him. And when he sang, first of all, he he wasn't gifted that way. He was more like me. He
Amen.
he sounded pretty bad. But when he sang in church, even though it sounded horrible, he sang as loud. He sang from the heart, and anybody that heard him knew that it was coming from his heart. And there just wasn't much he could do because of his defects. Sometimes he would write an article and he would pass it to the brethren. He didn't work as a preacher, or he wasn't told to do this by the elders. He would do this just to try to edify his brethren. So he would write an article and he would pass it out to the brethren as they were coming out of services. I mean, he did what he could do, and he tried to improve that which he had. And if we can do that and be a good example, along with, the other things that we may take for granted, being a good parent, being a good husband, just being a good friend to people, if we can be a proper example to where our brethren can see us meeting the Lord's expectations, then they may look to us and say, that's the kind of person I want to be. And he claims to do this because of Jesus. Maybe I need to look to Jesus more.
Yeah. And, how we talk to people, the things that we say, all of that is going to be an example, whether we're always negative, whether it is we are positive, whether we are kind, whether we are rude, whether we put on a fake smile and then, and talk to someone, and then behind their back, we start talking about them negatively. All of that's going to be seen and is going to leave an example of who we truly are and where our heart is. And we have a responsibility to everyone, not just brethren, but particularly brethren, to be that example of encouragement, of godliness, of being Christ-like. After all, that's our profession, and to say those things that are for encouragement. 2 Corinthians 13 in verse 10. And I don't know if Josh, if you would have that maybe to read kind of quickly, but 2 Corinthians 13 verse 10, Paul makes a point here about what he has authority to do.
He says, "For this reason I am writing these things while absent, so that when present I need not use severity in accordance with the authority which the Lord gave me for building up and not for tearing down."
Yeah, look at the authority that he has for building up, not for tearing down, right? Is that the example that we're leaving? I mean, Richard mentioned the example Paul left from 1 Corinthians 11:1, and here he is talking about, not just the authority that he has, but what kind of example he's leaving, right? To build up and not tear down. And I think that's important for us to consider, and what brethren should expect of us. In the example that we leave, have we built up or have we tore down?
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
I may preach on that Sunday. That's a good lesson right there.
Very good. Well, I mean, we can take your sermons and make a good lesson out of them. Maybe. Well, never mind. I'm just gonna stop there. Anyway,
where's the love of Jesus, Josh? Where's the love of Jesus in your life?
Wait, what's the next point?
All right, so we want to be a proper example so that we can be an encouragement to others, but also receive that example from them as well. I think that the next thing that we can talk about is a willingness to work. We've kind of alluded to that already with the cruise ship versus the battleship illustration. Um, uh, Chris already pointed out Ephesians 4:16. Every part does its share, causes the growth of the body for the edifying of itself in love, and so there is we're not we're not committing ourselves to a country club. We're joining a labor force that is intended to be active and part of the work that is being done. And so, uh, what a privilege it is to be able to work in the Lord's kingdom, to be able to take part in the work of the Lord. I think you find in 1 Corinthians 3 the idea, and I don't know that it's necessarily used in these exact words, but the reality is, Paul says that I've planted, Apollos watered, but God gives the increase. And he's talking about the idea that we are working together with God. We are co-laborers, co-workers with God in the work that he has given us to do. What a privilege that is to be able to work side by side with the creator of the universe to be able to accomplish his purposes. And so we need to have that willingness. Again, we're not spectators, but we are active laborers in the kingdom. So,
Yeah, yeah. My mind always goes back to the book of Nehemiah when here they were, the walls remained down. They were building their own homes, but they weren't rebuilding the temple. They weren't rebuilding the walls, protecting the city. And Nehemiah goes with letters from the king to go and to rebuild the walls of the city, and they do so. And I think it may be chapter 8 where it says that they did it in 52 days. Under persecution. I mean, there were people trying to stop them, people that were coming to strike them, to kill them, to do whatever they could to keep them from working. And so they had to start laboring with their sword next to their side, not just having watchmen, but those who were laboring and working, being ready to fight off any adversaries. But in one of those chapters, either chapter 4 or chapter 6, it says that they had a mind to work.
That's Nehemiah 4.
Nehemiah 4.
Yeah.
And so Nehemiah 4, here it is. They had a mind to work. I mean, that, and look at what they accomplished and how quickly they were able to accomplish it. And I think that translates over into what we're doing today as far as the local church is concerned. Not only assembling, setting examples, but for personal growth and growth of the kingdom, that's what we've got to have is a mind to work and put into practice, all the things that God would have us to do.
Richard?
Well, I think it was Peter that threw the net out over the side after not catching anything all night.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if he had not obeyed Jesus and did that? Would he have caught the fish? Would he have had that big haul? No. And so here's the question, that we have to ask ourselves is, is anyone going to be saved if we don't proclaim the gospel? I mean, 1 Corinthians 11, we show the Lord's death till he comes when we partake of the Lord's Supper. That's just when we come together. So we're preaching about that just by our partaking. People know what we're doing. And so you have to ask yourself, if we're not doing the work, if we're not preaching, if we're not doing these things, who's going to be saved? And, you may have someone that I'll just be honest. I have a daughter who is not faithful, and it breaks my heart. And there's many times when I feel like, well, if I go out there and I teach the gospel, who knows, that person that hears the gospel and may be strengthened by it or obey it, I don't know. They may be the one who goes and preaches to my daughter and converts her. I mean, you just don't know. I mean, that's the way the gospel is designed. It's designed to be shared. And if we don't share it, then how's it going to perform its function? And so, we have a responsibility toward that. And it doesn't matter whether it's Josh up there preaching or Chris. We need to support the gospel. I don't really care who's preaching. I just want to support the gospel. And so we need to make sure we support the gospel. And even if you're just sitting there listening, you serve a major function. I think we talked about example, and then we can talk about just the strength that you're getting from your own edification. So yes, we need to have a mind to work. I mean, everybody. If you go to Hebrews 11, you go throughout the Old Testament, every character of faith was given a job that kind of looks like, whoo, wow, this is a big, big job. Like Noah with his ark, Abraham, and well, a couple things with Abraham leaving his father's country to go to a one he didn't know anything about, and then of course sacrificing Isaac. Moses leading the children of Israel out of Egypt. I mean, those are big, big jobs, but they got busy doing it, and we have to get busy doing it as well. We have a big job, and I, it may appear. It sure looks almost impossible sometimes when you look at the commandment of God. It looks impossible. And I'm thinking about unity and things of that nature. But needless to say, it has to be possible or God wouldn't have commanded it. And I know it's not going to get done unless we do it.
Yeah.
So, we got to have a mind to work.
Romans 12, he goes through different things, different abilities, different gifts that people have. Because sometimes you look at, Richard, what you talked about in Hebrews chapter 11, and you've got, you talk about all these big, big things. And sometimes we think, well, if we're not doing a big thing, then there's no use in doing anything at all. And even Jesus talks about in Matthew 25 and other places, a cup of cold water, right? Visiting, right? Providing for the needs of someone may be a very small thing. It may not seem much to you, but to those to whom you are laboring for and using your gifts for, it means everything. As small as it may seem to you, it is huge to those who receive the benefit of the labors that you engage in. Telling someone about Christ may seem small to you, but that just saves somebody's soul eternally. I mean, that's huge. So, don't look at something as think that, well, it's just a small thing. Just work. Just do the work that God wants you to do. Small or big, that's not what's in question. The question is whether or not you're willing to work, and what brethren ought to be able to rely upon you to do the work, both big and small, but do what you can do and not think, either someone else will do it or, think, well, it's just nothing big, so why do it at all? Just do it. Do the work. That's what's expected. That's what's needed. And maybe it is something small. That's fine, because the small things make a difference.
Absolutely. I guess real quick, we've got another idea, that is to respect the authority of Jesus. Ephesians 1 talks about the fact that he is the head of the church, and all things are subject to him. And so in all things, we need to have that honor and respect for Jesus as our head, as our king, and recognize that we are subject to him. You want to add anything to that real quick?
I'm good.
No, I do want to add to that.
Go ahead.
There's just too many places that do not respect the authority of Jesus Christ. They respect the authority of man. And there's some denominations that have put man in place of God in making, law. And that is most unfortunate. In a sense, that can happen in the local church when somebody tries to be a Diotrephes and they want to have everybody answer to them. That can be a real danger. And so, yes, we all have to respect the authority of Jesus Christ and to understand that each one of us is a follower of Jesus. We are not a follower of men. And, if you want to, and I've said this over and over again to the brethren at church, because I'm the preacher and I know how things are in this country with preachers, the preacheritis, I guess some people call it. Nobody should be a follower of the preacher. Nobody should be a follower of an elder. Nobody should be a follower of any man. Our knee bows to Jesus and Jesus only. And so we have to, if we're going to do the work properly in the Lord's church, we have to, first of all, not accept, those who try to make us to be something that we're not. We need to speak out against that. Just like the angels, they spoke out against that. We don't bow to man, and we don't allow men to bow to us. And I had somebody just this week at Kearney say they had never heard a preacher actually practice that or say that, like they had heard me say it. But that's the truth. The work is not going to function. Like we said earlier, we can't redesign the Lord's church. The Lord's church bows to Jesus. That's the only way that the work is going to be done properly, is if we bow to Jesus and Jesus only.
Amen. I'll give that a hearty amen. All right. Any last thoughts, Chris?
I'm good.
All right. Richard, any last thoughts before we close?
No, I'm good.
All righty. Our brethren need us. I think that's one of the things that we hopefully can take away from our study today. We should be, our brethren should be able to rely on us, and we should be able to rely on them as we labor together for the work, in the work of the Lord. We thank you all for joining us today. I've hoped it's been a profitable study, and I hope that we can continue to study these things and to apply them to ourselves and be fruitful laborers in the kingdom. We look forward to next week when we can join again Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Central Time. But in the meantime, we look forward to the next time and keep studying the scriptures with Berean spirits.
Well, folks, that's all for today. Don't worry. Lord willing, the guys will be back next week for another Bible study on Berean spirits. Until then, let the guys hear from you. Drop them some email at bereanspirits@gmail.com. They'd love to hear from you. Until next time, let's keep studying that Bible.